Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of today's Falcon 9 Block 5 launch Starlink 4-18 with SpaceX, launching from Launch Pad 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. You're looking at a live view from NASA Kennedy Space Center of the Falcon 9 booster 1052-5 standing tall at Pad 39A, getting ready to launch 53 more Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit today. But as always, as we get started, welcome here to the launch pad here at TLP. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you here. Take a moment, let us know where you're watching from in the chat. We were targeting liftoff at 6:20 a.m. Then it was 6:40, and now we've had another little bit of a delay here, so we are currently T-minus 39 minutes, 39 seconds, and counting until liftoff. We do have mission control patched in here, so if we do hear any updates from SpaceX mission control on the progress of fueling, you will be able to hear that live with me as well. Today, we do have a short follow gravitas station 626 kilometers downrange, attempting to recover today's booster with the support ship Doug, which will also be recovering the fairing halves out of the water about 633 kilometers downrange. This is the 21st launch of SpaceX for 2022, their 49th launch from Launch Complex 39A in their history, and the 55th orbital launch attempt of 2022 of any space agency. We're not expecting SpaceX to go live in about 20 minutes or so, and we will patch that in for updates on the weather to see how everything is progressing through today's count as we get ready for liftoff here today, targeting 6:58 a.m. We've been keeping a close eye on the weather for today. There was some lightning late last night near the Cape, but everything has cleared off and the lightning areas have been cleared for today's flight. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the launch pad, and we will be able to answer those live through today's countdown and flight as we get ready for liftoff of 53 more Starlink satellites from Launch Complex 39A. Right now, the lightning and wind boards are all green for Kennedy Space Center. Nothing that they are currently tracking on there that is of any concern for today's launch. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of today's SpaceX Starlink 4-18 launch from Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. You're looking at a live view of that Falcon 9 standing tall there. We are listening in to mission control to hear how prop load is going for today's flight. These 53 Starlink satellites are targeting the same 540-kilometer circular low Earth orbit, but they will be dropped off today in a little bit of a higher orbit, 318 by 304 kilometers, launching at a 53.2-degree inclination, so launching up the northeast coast of the United States. And then over the next couple of weeks, they'll spread out and move up towards that final orbit of 540 kilometers. Starlink is being developed with 8 shells, so 8 layers of Starlink satellites. 5 are in the first phase, and then there will be 3 additional added on to complete their total constellation of around 11,700 satellites. They have applied for permission to add an additional 30,000 as part of Phase 2, but so far we're waiting for updates from the FCC on that. But right now they are operating towards this goal of getting Phase 1 online. Should today's launch go successfully, SpaceX will have launched a total of 2,653 Starlink satellites, and there will be 2,405 that remain in orbit should all 53 be deployed successfully. This is the 17th launch into the fourth shell, which is expected to take about 30 launches to complete that shell. See who we've got joining us in this morning. We've got Zach, that's me. Kevin, good morning. We got Jessica, Stephen from Australia. We got Norman.
Propellant load and launch go. No go poll is complete. We are go for propellant load and launch. Stand by for abort instructions. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD, and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting safety of the operation, operators shall call hold, and countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count.
So we just heard there on the mission net, they are go for prop load of today's Falcon 9 Block 5 booster at pad 39A, coming down to T-minus, and launch auto sequence has started there. T-minus 34 minutes, 18 seconds, and counting. See a few more people jumping on this morning. Great to have you all here. Got Norman in South Texas. We got Francis. Great to have you here. Lots of people jumping in. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad and our live coverage of Starlink 4-18. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and share out the broadcast. Really does help us out in making sure that we bring you the best possible space coverage we can with our own TLP live views, which you're looking at here fresh this morning, of a beautiful pad 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we will be answering those live as we count down towards liftoff a little bit later here this morning. Well, again, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of SpaceX Starlink 4-18 from NASA Kennedy Space Center as we come down to T-minus 22 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. The teams have pulled go for propellant load, and we are starting to see those first vapors coming off the Falcon 9 sitting tall at Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. This is where we see all of the crewed flights from and the Falcon Heavy launches as well. You can see that crew access arm has already been fully retracted away, and that Falcon 9 with 53 Starlink satellites is being fully fueled as we are targeting a launch at 6:59 and 40 seconds here this morning. We had a small delay of about 20 minutes, about an hour ago, as SpaceX did push the timeline, but they do have a window, as this is not an instantaneous launch window this morning for today's Starlink location, so they were able to adjust that. Looking at the weather board, all of the lightning that was there last evening has cleared, and right now the winds and the lightning board are fully green for all of the Space Coast, and the teams are moving towards that launch window here this morning. This is the 17th launch into the fourth shell of the Starlink constellation, but I know I said it was dash 18. SpaceX doesn't always know how to count, so we are still waiting, I believe, on dash 13 to launch, so we'll see when that one possibly does occur. Today's booster is a previously flown booster 1052-5 with a 69-day turnaround. Getting ready to fly for its fifth ever mission. It will be attempting to land on a short fall of gravitas about 626 kilometers downrange, and Doug will attempt to scoop out the fairing halves from the water about 633 kilometers downrange and then pull a short fall of gravitas back. The weather was currently 80% go, but as I said, everything is green on the board and teams are progressing through the prop load of the Falcon 9. This is the 21st launch of SpaceX for 2022. Their 49th launch from Launch Complex 39A since they've leased it out, and the 55th orbital launch of 2022 of any space agency. Tanya, thank you so much for that super chat. Good morning. Doing well. Excited for another launch here this morning. Grateful to have our rocket chasers out at Kennedy today for a couple of activities that are happening today. Obviously, we've got the launch of Starlink here this morning. We've got rollout of the Boeing Starliner later today. So be sure to follow us over on Twitter to see some live photos and videos from that following the rollout. And we're glad to see some more missions happening here today. Elijah, we will be patching SpaceX in once they go live. Great question there. But let us know in the chat how you guys are doing, where you're tuning in from all over the world. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button. It really does help us out. We're coming down T-minus 19 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. You can really start to see those vapors now coming from the first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. We do have the mission control net patched in, so if we do hear any updates over the net, you will be hearing those updates along with me in real time. Norman asking why did they push the launch? Nothing that we've heard directly on a reason why. Could just be that they needed a little bit of time for the propellant load, that there was something in the range. Lots of different things that are occurring is why they could have had that delay. The only reason they were able to do it is because today is not an instantaneous launch window, so they were able to have a larger period of time that they would be able to delay that fueling and get ready to go from there. So great question. If you guys have questions, you can send those to us in the chat. Just tag us at the launch pad in your chat, and we will be able to see those questions come in, and we're answering those live as we count down T-minus 18 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting until liftoff here today. If you like what we do and like to help support what we do, consider becoming a subscriber, just hitting that subscribe button or hitting that join button, becoming a TLP crew member. You get access to behind the scenes, merch discounts, early video access, scripting access, whole bunch of other stuff, depending on the tier. Our VIP spectator tier starts at just $1.99. It's a great way to help support us, making sure that we can get these live views from different launch complexes across the United States and around the world as we enter this kind of next era of space exploration, with launches almost daily some weeks. So we really appreciate you being here. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And we cover all the launches, press events, exclusive interviews, and more, all right here, your one-stop shop for everything space. Good morning, Terry from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Great to have you here. Elijah asking, what's the purpose of today's launch? They are launching 53 more Starlink satellites into the Starlink constellation, which is what is SpaceX's internet communication satellite constellation. The low Earth orbit constellation will deliver fast, low latency internet services to locations where ground-based internet is unreliable, unavailable, or even expensive. The first phase of the constellation will have 5 shells, and then there are 3 more that are being proposed to be added as well. But those first 5 shells are now well underway. Today we're launching into the 4th shell. Shell 1 has been completed. I believe 2 is as well. 3 has had a couple launches. And I don't believe we've seen any for 5 just yet. But that'll be all going there. Starlink is available now pretty much globally. Head over to starlink.com. We're not affiliated in any way, but there is a map that you can see whether service is available in your region or not through their site. We are expecting SpaceX to go live here in just a couple of minutes, so we will be patching that in. We will be keeping our live view on air, though, so you'll be able to see both views as SpaceX will be going around showing their view. This is a live view from one of our TLP rocket chasers down at NASA Kennedy Space Center. Coming down T-minus 16 minutes and counting. Propellant load. And there we go. Stage 2 LOX load has begun on the Falcon 9 as they begin to prepare here for launch. Some of the next things that we can expect to see get underway at T-minus 7 minutes. Falcon 9 will begin its engine chill prior to launch. T-minus 1 minute, that's when command of the flight computer will begin its final pre-launch checks. T-minus 1 minute is when all tanks will pressurize to flight pressures, and at T-minus 45 seconds, the SpaceX launch director will verify go, no go for launch, and it will be handed off to the Falcon 9. Remember, Falcon 9 is an autonomous rocket, so all the way down to pretty much 0 seconds, it can scrub itself if it detects any issue or possibly violation in its launch parameters through today. Following liftoff, we expect max Q to occur about 1 minute into flight. MECO, 2.5 minutes into flight, followed immediately by first and second stage separation, second stage engine start, and fairing deployment, all within about 15 seconds. We are expecting the first stage to touch down about 8 minutes, 20 seconds in today's flight onto a short fall of gravitas, and Starlink deploy will be about 59 minutes into flight. Now, we do plan on staying live for you guys through Starlink deployment, so make sure that you stay with us here for that. We'll turn up some space tunes and answer your questions for that. We are just waiting for SpaceX to get ready to begin their live coverage, where we'll get updates on the weather and today's launch from SpaceX Mission Control, and you are listening into the net as well. Norman saying at least SpaceX has dropped the mandatory T-minus 4 minute coffee and pee break. The ULA still has. They have them built in. So the difference is T-minus and L-minus, which is something we're going to really get used to again with the SLS launches, is that there is an L-minus countdown, which is really what we all know as T-minus. But the T-minus countdown can pause, as you're saying there, with a 4-minute hold. We saw it with Shuttle. It had a number of built-in holds, and that's a normal part of procedure. So sometimes we aren't used to seeing those with SpaceX. They do have built-in periods of where they have to check things out and roll through their countdown. So just a little bit of a cleaner look, but they do technically still have some of those built-in activities. Also, Falcon 9 is just a really proven vehicle now, so they know how it performs and know how everything goes green and yellow. Now, we are keeping an eye on the Falcon 9. When they called go for that second prop load, a lot of the venting of the Falcon 9 kind of calmed down there around the booster. So we'll keep an eye on that as we come down to just under T-minus 13 minutes and counting until launch here today. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just take us at the launch pad, and we are answering those live as we get ready to watch 53 more Starlink satellites launch from Launch Complex 39A. Should they have any delays to the due to weather, they do have a possibility of delaying to a launch, I believe, tomorrow, but there would have to be talks with the range on how everything is progressing due to the targeted launch of Boeing Starliner tomorrow as well. We will have our TLP rocket chaser Nick out at pad 41 for rollout of Starliner today, so make sure you follow us over on Twitter. Link will be in the chat there, TLPN_official, to get some live to see some pictures and videos from the rollout a little bit later today. And if you haven't yet, join us over on our Discord. People are hanging out in live comms for every launch, but also in between talking about everything space. There's a gaming area in there as well if you're playing Kerbal or Jackbox, and we'd love to have you as part of our community. It's free to join there. But if you are a TLP member helping support what we do, there is behind the scenes access in there as well. And we've got a lot of big projects underway that we look forward to sharing with all of you in the very near future. Something great that you can see here actually on the right side of your shot is where they are currently building the new launch complex tower and pad for Starship. So that crane that's forming an X actually on your screen, that's one of the cranes currently just bent over because of the launch. That is there, and a couple other pillars of other cranes as they get ready to pour some of the concrete and get ready to start building that new launch complex out at 39A. Still waiting to know what the name will be, as it will still be at 39A, so 39A-2, or we'll see what happens. But excited to see that kind of Starbase 2.0 is already being developed. 5 sections out of the 8 of the new launch tower are already built and awaiting to be rolled out to the pad once all the foundations are laid. Dogtones is asking, how is SLS? ULA not private but called NASA, but SpaceX is 100% private. So SLS is a NASA mission. Vulcan and Atlas are ULA missions. ULA is a private company, but is funded by government, where SpaceX is a private company that does private launches and has private vehicles, but do their own missions as well. So that's the difference. ULA doesn't have its own missions. They are a provider, where SpaceX does kind of both. So that's the difference there. Ooh, SpaceX is streaming in 4K today. That's a nice update. We are seeing that SpaceX is going live, so we will patch them in here once they get underway and listen into an update on how fueling and everything is going here today. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the Launchpad and our live launch coverage of Starlink 4-18 from Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. We're coming down T-minus 9 minutes, 10 seconds and counting until liftoff of 53 more Starlink satellites. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and share out the broadcast as we get started here today. And we will be patching in live views from SpaceX, keeping our live view on. And once we get into launch and have lost tracking with our live view, we will be patching in live telemetry as well from SpaceX, so you'll be able to track those two things. If it's your first time here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you here. If you have questions, send those in the chat. Just take us at the launch pad, and we will be answering those. But let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control as we count down T-minus 8 minutes, 30 seconds and counting until launch.
And welcome to our 48th Starlink mission. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'll be your host today as we follow Falcon 9 take 53 Starlink satellites into space. Now, before we get started, we wanted to share something that has nothing to do with today's launch. What you're looking at on your screen is this incredible live shot of the moon being captured by one of our tracking cameras down at the Cape. Now, these are the same cameras that we used to track Falcon 9 during launch, and today we're getting a bonus view of the moon, which looks pretty incredible there on your screen. Thanks to our launch engineer, John, who was able to hook us up with this great shot. Just wanted to share that with you all real quick, but now let's get back to the mission at hand. Now on your screen is historic Launch Pad 39A, located in Florida's Kennedy Space Center, set to lift off in about 8 minutes from now at 6:59 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got one of our shorter webcasts today with live coverage ending just after first stage landing and second engine cutoff. We will confirm deployment over Starlink satellites via SpaceX's social channels, but we'll also leave the mission audio live on our YouTube channel if you'd like to follow along through payload deploy. If for some reason we don't launch today, we do have a backup opportunity on Thursday, May 19th at 6:38 a.m. Eastern Time. For our new viewers out there, Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. And the rocket that you see on your screen there will be taking additional satellites to space in order to grow our constellation and expand our coverage. Now with that, let's get to know a little bit more about Falcon 9 and the launch pad that we're lifting off from today. Located in Merritt Island, Florida, Launch Complex 39A, or LC-39A, was originally designed to launch NASA astronauts on Saturn V vehicles. In 1967, Launch Complex 39A supported its first mission, launching the uncrewed Apollo 4 spacecraft, as well as the first Saturn V launch. Later, Pad 39A was remodeled to support the space shuttle. In addition to the first 24 space shuttle flights, this launch pad also supported the final shuttle flights until the fleet was retired in July of 2011. In May of 2013, NASA announced the opportunity to lease Launch Complex 39A, and we signed the lease in 2014. Now, 8 years later, we're well on our way to launch our 49th mission off 39A and our 48th mission of Starlink overall in just a few minutes from now. Now, the vehicle that you see on your screen is our Falcon 9 rocket, and the Starlink satellites are housed in the very top of the vehicle, and that's what you see on your screen. That's a structure called the fairing. Now, the job of the fairing is to protect the Starlink satellites until we reach the vacuum of space. But at that point, we no longer need the fairing, so we will jettison the fairing halves and attempt to retrieve them once they return back to Earth. Both the fairing halves protecting our Starlink satellites today will be flying for the third time on this mission. And below the fairing, we have the second stage. Now that's that shorter white stage above the black inner stage that houses our Merlin vacuum engine. After the first and second stages separate about 2.5 minutes into the flight, the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum engine to carry the payload to its desired orbit. And last but not least, we have the first stage, also referred to as the booster. This portion of the rocket makes up over 60% of the entire length of the Falcon 9 vehicle. Now, as the name of the vehicle suggests, Falcon 9, attached to the bottom of the first stage are 9 Merlin M1D engines that accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere and into various orbits in space. The dark soot that you see around the lower part of the first stage are remnants from its previous launches. For this particular booster, it has experience supporting both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions. It supported Cosmos SkyMed and a Starlink mission, as well as supporting STP-2 and Arabsat 6A as a Falcon Heavy side booster. Now, what you can see on your screen there is our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. It's currently using its 4 thrusters to maintain position in the Atlantic Ocean. And the first stage will be, once it separates from the second stage, we will be attempting to recover the first stage for a 5th time on our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. We got a great view there too. Now you can see on your screen, there are those clamp arms just below the fairing opening up. Those clamp arms are attached to the transporter erector, that structure next to the vehicle. And it looks like the clamp arms have completed opening up, so we should see the transporter erector start to move. And there you can see it on your screen. It's slow and slight, but the transporter erector is now moving away from the vehicle just slightly. And at liftoff, it will move even further away to clear the way as Falcon 9 lifts off. And there you can see it. Pretty cool close-up view of that transporter erector retracting back. We're coming up on prop load completion on the
Stage 1, LOX load complete.
And great timing. We got that call out that LOX load is complete on the first stage. That concludes prop load for first stage. Second stage will be wrapping up around the T-minus 2-minute mark. And we always try to load the LOX as close to T0 as possible. That allows us to keep the liquid oxygen as cold as possible, as dense as possible, so that we can load as much of it as possible into the vehicles. Again, first stage LOX load has already concluded. We're coming up here in about 15 seconds or so on second stage LOX load complete. Once we finish prop loading, we have the LOX line on the transporter erector. We will start to clear out that line, so you'll see a lot more of those white clouds because we'll be venting out the liquid oxygen line once we finish prop load.
And as we come down to T-minus 2 minutes and counting until launch, as always, let's see a go, no go in the chat. If you are a TLP member, you can use those exclusive go, no go emojis. If not, just type it in. As we come down, we're going to see Falcon 9 go into startup and prepare for launch. Just a warning, the live view on the right side of your screen is likely about 15-20 seconds ahead or so. So you'll see liftoff there, then we'll see it on SpaceX. And once we lose it on our own tracking shot, that is when we will patch in the live telemetry of the booster and the second stage on the right view. But as we come down to T-minus 75 seconds and counting, let's listen in to SpaceX mission control, waiting for that final go for launch of Starlink 4-18.
Computers will take over the launch countdown. We should hear that call out here in a few seconds.
Falcon is in startup.
There it is. Falcon 9 is now in startup. We are just waiting the final call from the launch director.
Starlink 418, go for launch.
And great news, all systems are go for launch. So let's watch as Falcon 9 takes our 53 Starlink satellites into space.
T-minus 30 seconds.
And we have ignition.
T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
1. Full power. And liftoff.
Vehicle's pitching downrange.
Nominal first stage chamber pressures.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Launch Complex 39A, carrying our 53 Starlink satellites into space. Now, moments ago, we did throttle down the engines on the first stage, and this is in preparation for Max Q. Max Q
Power
is,
telemetry are nominal.
Max Q is the maximum dynamic pressure that the vehicle sees on ascent.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Great callouts. Max Q should be coming up here in about 10 seconds or so.
Max Q.
And there's that call out. We just passed through Max Q. Now with that, we have a few events happening back to back very quickly, one after another. That'll be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, SES1, or second stage engine startup 1, and then fairing deploy. MECO is where all 9 of those engines that you could see lit up on your screen, that is where those engines will shut down, and that helps slow the vehicle down in preparation for the next event, which will be stage separation. That's where the first and second stage separates from each other. First stage will start to make its way back home here on Earth, while the second stage continues on its journey, taking the Starlink satellites with it, with SES1, or second stage engine startup 1, and that's where we will light up that single Merlin engine on the second stage, and that second stage will then propel the Starlink satellites to its targeted drop-off orbit.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back startup.
Bearing separation confirmed.
Great views of all 4 of those events. We had MECO, main engine cutoff, which we were able to see with the tracking camera. We had stage separation. On your left-hand screen, you can see a view from the first stage. On your right-hand screen is the view of the
Both
MVAC.
vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Great call-outs, nominal trajectory so far. On your right-hand screen is a view of the MVAC engine on the second stage, and you can see that is lit up. And we also got a great view of fairing deploy. And with those fairing halves having deployed, they are now going to make their way back to Earth. And the second stage will now continue its journey to take its Starlink satellites to its targeted drop-off orbit. And some awesome views here on your screen with the Earth in the background.
Acquisition signal Bermuda.
Now, while second stage proceeds towards its targeted drop-off orbit, the first stage will be making its way back to Earth, and to do so, it will execute 2 burns. Now, the first burn is called the entry burn, and that is where 3 of those 9 M1D engines reignite. That helps slow the vehicle down as it enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. Then the second burn is called the landing burn. It's the final burn of the first stage. It's just the single center E9 engine. And that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to touch down.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
In order to touch down on our landing zone. And again, today it is a short fall of gravitas, our drone ship that is nearly the size of a football field, and it's currently located off the coast of South Carolina in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, to aid in recovery, Falcon 9 is equipped with some pretty awesome tools to help it land. It has 4 landing legs stowed at the base of the vehicle that deploy right before landing. It also has 4 hypersonic grid fins, and you can see that on your left-hand screen. You can see 2 of the 4. These grid fins are located near the top of the first stage, and they help to steer the vehicle as it makes its way back to its landing zone. And you can also see some white puffs on the first stage. There goes one. Those are nitrogen bursts. Those are used for attitude control as the vehicle is guiding its way back down to Earth. We are just about 15 seconds or so away from the entry burn beginning on the first stage. Stage 2 is still looking good.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And we heard that call out, and you can visually see on your screen those engines lighting back up on the first stage. This entry burn will last about 20 seconds long. And it's just 3 of those 9.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
3 of those 9 engines, and heard that call out that the entry burn has concluded, and you can visually see that the engines have shut down.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Now, there will be a second burn for the first stage. That is the landing burn. But as the vehicle is coasting right now, the atmosphere scrubs most of the velocity on the first stage. So we just need that single 1 engine burn right before touchdown. Each one of these M1D engines have about 190,000 pounds of thrust. That's enough to slow the vehicle down rapidly to make that touchdown landing. Now we are coming
Stage
up.
1 transonic.
We are coming up on that landing burn in just under 30 seconds. And a great view of first stage here, making its way towards our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There you can see the landing burn has begun on the first stage. The landing legs will
Terminal
deploy
guidance.
here shortly. Let's see if Falcon 9 can touch down.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Incredible view there. As you can see on your screen, Falcon 9 has touched down on our drone ship.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
A shortfall of gravitas. Now this marks the 121st overall recovery of a Falcon booster. And what a great view we have there on our screen. And we are coming up on SECO 1 here.
And back cutoff.
Expected loss of signal, Cape.
And we have a nominal orbit insertion.
And great news, we heard those
Stage
call
2
outs.
FTS is saved.
We did lose the live view of second stage, but that was expected. But with confirmation of a successful second engine cutoff and a good orbit, we will be ending our webcast for today.
Now, SpaceX will be wrapping up their live cast, but we will be staying live through deployment, tracking the second stage as it gets ready to work its way until payload deployment about 44 minutes from now. So don't head out anywhere. We're going to be answering your questions live right there in the chat. So if you have questions, send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. If it was your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. Don't forget, it's launch day, so use promo promo code LaunchDay in the TLP shop, and you can get 10% off of everything over there. And we are going to be taking your guys' live comments and questions, as I said, as we continue to track the second stage through deployment. Deployment expected to occur about 54 minutes into flight. We are going to have one more burn of that second stage engine. That burn set to occur at T plus 45 minutes for just a quick 2-second burn to finalize the deployment orbit before they get ready to go from today. But a great launch out of pad 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center with our own live camera there, and then of course SpaceX's great shots as well. I'm glad to have each and every one of you here with us this morning. Make sure you don't miss any other launches by engaging that subscribe button as well, as we do go live for every launch of every small and large space agency, as well as test flights when we can, exclusive interviews, space news updates, press conferences, and more. If you haven't yet, take a moment and join us over on our Discord. We do hang out there for most launches as well, and in between, talking about everything space and just hanging out as a space community. And if you'd like to help support what we do, you hit that join button, $1.99 a month. It helps us bring you the best possible space coverage as we enter this next era of space exploration. But Starlink 4-18 on its way to its final deployment orbit before payload deployment of 53 more Starlink satellites. But Falcon 9 booster 10 52-5 successful flight after a 69-day turnaround. Norman, yeah, just a few years ago, everyone thought that landing a booster was impossible, and now we see 3 launches in about 5 days, all 3 having successful landings, and today's pretty much dead center on a short fall of gravitas. As I said, we're going to be answering your guys' questions in the chat, but that's going to wrap up our live commentary portion of today. We're not going anywhere. Stay with us as we track the second stage of today's Falcon 9, carrying 53 more Starlink satellites to its deployment orbit. Stay with us.
you.